King's speech today, and sources inside the palace have apparently been at pains to tell the Labour government that they should not in any way drag the King into the shambolic chaos that he's carrying on. Have you heard anything on this?
Yeah, well, I just sort of can suggest various things. I mean, the king saved this dreadful prime minister's problem when he was in America. He read a brilliant speech. He was absolutely top. And now we have to be careful that it's not used for him again, because it's not right. He's not going to use someone to do all your dirty work, frankly. So I was very pleased when I heard that the king himself said that sent some things back with alterations.
Let's get into it. King Charles III has been on the throne since September 2022. He ascended after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, a monarch who spent over 70 years navigating exactly this kind of political pressure with quiet, steely dignity. Charles inherited that responsibility. He also inherited the constitutional obligation that comes with it. A constitutional monarchy means the king does what the elected government tells him to do. He reads the speech. He attends the ceremony. He waves from the balcony. The system depends on that neutrality, but neutrality has a limit. And insiders say that limit is being tested right now.
I think that the king has been very careful about this. Of course, it is a constitutional monarchy, which means that the monarch has to do what he's told by the government. So people don't realise that, but it is that. But you can still save yourself and not do the dirty work. That's the thing that's very important. And I think that the king is fed up with this man.
Do
And he
you?
might, yes, and I think he might even say one or two things that actually slipped in.
Keir Starmer's Labour government has had what can only be described as a catastrophic first 22 months in power. In that short window, the Prime Minister has managed to alienate voters on the left, voters on the right, key international allies, and according to those palace sources, the King himself. And now, with rumors swirling that Starmer's position could become untenable within days, his team reportedly looked to the King's speech as a lifeline. A moment of royal pageantry to inject gravitas into a government that has almost completely run out of it, and that, according to sources, is exactly what has the palace quietly seething. Here's something that gets buried in the coverage every single time this kind of moment happens. The monarchy is not a stage set. It is not a PR backdrop. And yet, there is a pattern. When governments are weak, they lean on the crown. When prime ministers need legitimacy, they borrow it from an institution that has spent centuries building trust the government itself has destroyed in months. The king knows this game. He's watched it his entire life. His mother played the long game for decades, reading out policies she privately disagreed with, maintaining the silence the Constitution demanded. But even she had limits. And Charles, who has never been as guarded as Elizabeth, who has always been more willing to let his feelings show, is reportedly doing the same. Just more quietly and more carefully. Here's where it gets explosive. During the king's visit to the United States, something remarkable happened. Charles delivered a speech so precise, so diplomatically layered, that he reportedly managed to win over both Democrats and Republicans in the same room. People who hadn't agreed on anything in years were applauding simultaneously. And tucked inside that speech were what sources describe as barbed, subtle comments, aimed directly at the political climate surrounding Donald Trump. Comments so carefully constructed that Trump himself apparently didn't clock the dig. He clapped along with everyone else.
Well, I must say one thing about him in America. He managed to have the Democrats and the Republicans eating out of his hands, and he made a couple of barbed comments about Trump, who was either not intelligent enough to know that the king was being subtle or missed the point, because he clapped them as well.
That is not an accident. That is a man who knows exactly what he's doing with words, which makes what happened at the king's speech even more significant. Because when Charles sent portions of that speech back with changes, that was deliberate. That was a message. And Starmer's team apparently had no choice but to receive it. Now here is the layer that almost nobody is talking about. Keir Starmer has in the past been aligned with factions of the labor movement that have been openly Republican in their politics. Not loudly, not in recent campaign speeches. But the paper trail exists. The associations are there. The king is not unaware of this. And when you combine that history with the perception that Starmer has used every available institution, including the monarchy, to shore up his own crumbling authority, you begin to understand why the atmosphere inside the palace is reportedly so cold.
Great. I love
You,
it.
you want the truth, don't you?
Shall I tell you what I think? I think he's an over-promoted, vacuous little accountant slash solicitor who's unbelievably got to where he is. I think he was an appalling... Do you know, I remember Boris Johnson in the House of Commons saying, and you missed Jimmy Savile, and there was uproar, and I thought, no, he's absolutely right. Have you seen the clip today about him talking about Johnson? Have you seen this?
No.
I'm going to make your morning. I'm going to make Angela's morning. Play... This is him 4 years ago, Angela. Have a watch. Go on, play this.
Imagine spending your entire life, your mother's entire life, building and protecting an institution, and then watching a prime minister who privately doesn't even believe that institution should exist use it as a political survival tool. That is not a minor irritation. That is a personal and institutional betrayal.
All this nonsense about clinging on for a few months. He's inflicted lies, fraud and chaos in the country. And, you know, we're stuck with a government which isn't functioning in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And the change we need is not a change at the top of the Tory party. It's much more fundamental than that. We need a change of government and a fresh start for Britain. His own party have finally concluded that he's unfit to be Prime Minister. They can't now inflict him on the country for the next few months. It's obvious he's unfit to be Prime Minister. That's been blindingly obvious for a very, very long time.
The clip didn't need a caption. The internet wrote its own. As of now, Starmer remains in Downing Street. The King's speech has been delivered, but the questions hanging over this government and over how far Starmer is willing to go to use the crown as cover have not been answered.
Two quick questions. Would you say then that Starmer's using the King to cover or make up for the mistakes he's made?
I'm sorry, who?
Would you say that Starmer's using the King to cover up?
Oh,
his
yes, that's what I mean. You know, he would like it. He saw how well the King has done. He hasn't decided, well, let me go so I don't make the life difficult for the King. He's just hanging on in there. As you say, he's going to stay till tomorrow. But it's ridiculous, really, because you say what's going on, and then in 2 days later, it's not happening.
The speech happened, the cameras rolled, the ceremony was observed, and on the surface, everything looked dignified and procedurally correct. But the cracks are visible if you know where to look. The alterations, the palace warnings to labor, the careful distance the King has reportedly been keeping. These are not the actions of a monarch who is comfortable. These are the actions of a man protecting something he loves from someone he doesn't trust. And Starmer's own words have now come back to haunt him. A resurfaced clip shows him just 4 years ago calling a sitting prime minister unfit for office, accusing that leader of inflicting lies, fraud, and chaos on the country, of clinging to power when his own party had turned against him.
Final question. It's my favourite one I've ever asked you. You've got to have dinner with one of them. Keir Starmer or Meghan Markle?
I would have both and give them a real write-off.
Files exist. Conversations happened behind closed doors. And the palace's patience is not infinite.
Are you saying that the King doesn't like Starmer?
Well, if somebody was with you and you've been working in an area for, many years, 70-something years, and then you know that they don't give a button for what you're doing, they wanted it not to happen. They would like to.
You make a really good point. Starmer, as in the past, I'm pretty sure, as being part of a party that would like to change the monarchy, and that will create things. Interestingly, Charles is probably, Angela, a bit to the left in certain policies, and probably, as much as anything, would be angry that Starmer has imploded as spectacularly as he's done by lying and letting people down.
Yes, I'm sure that's right. He's very honourable, and this man is not. But I do also think that he feels very, very strongly for the monarchy, and that is his life, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's his mother's life. And when somebody wants to get rid of them, or you can tell that they're being phony when they meet you, you can't possibly like them.
Is this what democracy looks like? A prime minister using a cancer-stricken king to legitimize a government the country has already lost faith in? If you want to know what's really happening behind the palace gates and what comes next, subscribe to Viral Spills right now. We're just getting started.